Hey, what's going on? It is yours truly, Timothy J. Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. On this edition, we're going to be talking about Kellen Moore and has he changed the way that Saints fans are approaching 2025? And also, if you're from the old New Orleans, then you know where I'm at.
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
All I got to say is, who that? Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, Timothy J. Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Really do appreciate it. Much love to each and every one of you. Appreciate your time, no matter where you at in the world. And I want to say, I hope that everybody had a great weekend. Shouts out to Jerry. I know he celebrated his birthday over the weekend. Happy belated birthday to you, buddy. Shouts out to my brother Sam, who actually shares the same birthday as you, Jerry. And it was a great weekend, man. Got rained out here. I was supposed to take part in a Juneteenth festival for the radio station, but that ended up getting rained out. So I pretty much spent the entire weekend just kind of chilling, man. Went to church, and now, I decided to, do a show here on this Tuesday afternoon, man. Monday wasn't really much to talk about, man. Wasn't really much to talk about. As we know, minicamp is over, so it's going to be a lot of downtime until training camp kicks off. You'll probably hear a story or two, maybe about a signing. Maybe like a story that we're going to be talking about today in Cam Akers. But, the stories are few and far between as guys, try to get that last vacation in, try to get that last bit of family time in, before they really have to get into the grind of the season. Before we get started, for those that are filing in, I just ask that you hit the like button if you enjoy the State of the Saints podcast and all the content. Also, I'm just asking everybody to subscribe to the State of the NFL channel. We're going to be kicking off that for first week of July. So looking forward to that. I'm excited about, taking on that new project. And I hope that you go on that journey with me, just like a lot of you have been on the State of the Saints podcast journey with me. But let's go ahead and get into it, man. Let's get into it. Matter of fact, let's not get into it just yet. Let me plug up my laptop before this show ends, before it begins. Until then, listen to the incredible silence of Mr. Sherman Hemsley. Cast by the moon. Shouts out to Sherman Hemsley, man. Hey, that I don't know how I found that, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I found it.
When I seen him throw that ball, I was like, oh my God.
All right, man, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was hired as the Saints head coach in February. Of course, a lot of people had their reservations and still do about Kellen Moore. Can he lead men? Most people that follow the National Football League, fans, they feel like a coach has to be rah-rah, full of pea and vinegar, if you will. If they don't have that, then that means they're going to be passive and they don't want a Dennis Allen fiasco all over again. But, the more I look at Kellen Moore, the more I feel more comfortable, no pun intended, with him being a head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Now, once again, I said this on the last episode, you got to win football games. But right now, it seems like he is trying to create a culture and letting the team know that the way that he is going to approach the game is going to be different from a lot of these players, what they are used to, especially like Cam Jordan. For the most part, Cam Jordan has dealt with the same type of routine. Alvin Kamara, kind of the same routine. Demario Davis, over the last, 7-8 years, pretty much the same routine. So, but most of these other guys, they're probably happy and excited to embrace something a little bit different. I was checking out an interview with Chris Olave, and I got to say, man, Chris looks happy. I mean, he looks as happy as I have ever seen him in a Saints uniform. It seems like he is happy that the cavalry and so to speak has come in. Maybe, the way that he's looking at it, looking at the offense being more wide open. He even spoke about that. But, it's good to see that Chris Olave is in a good place. We know Chris Olave and what he has been through over the last couple of years dealing with those concussions. I'm still a little concerned about that, but we know that Chris Olave is a talented wide receiver. And if Kellen Moore can utilize Chris Olave the way that a lot of us, felt the Saints would when they drafted him, thus the reason why we were so excited when his name popped up being drafted by the Saints. If Kellen Moore can utilize him in a special way, then I think the sky's the limit for Chris Olave and the Saints offense. So to me, that is the first person that I'm looking forward to seeing in 2025. Can Chris Olave be able to hold up the entire season? Will concussions play a role this season? I hope not. And will he be able to break out and be that star that a lot of us feel he can be? The next person would be Rashid Shaheed. Not so much about what Rashid Shaheed can do, but can Rashid Shaheed get away from special teams and be that guy that exclusively belongs to the offense? Just no special team stuff, no kick returning, etc. Will the Saints utilize him more in the offense? I know that's kind of like a rite of passage for a young wide receiver, especially if he was a really good return guy in college. We seen that with Dez Bryant. We seen it with Odell Beckham Jr. We seen guys who can return, kicks, and teams will put them back there when they're young. But as they start to get older, they transition out of special teams. And I just think that Rashid Shaheed should, transition out of that special teams role. Now, this could be a major hit for the New Orleans Saints because of how much of a weapon that he is, but he is so special on the offensive side of the football. I don't want to see you lose Rashid Shaheed on a special teams play. You might want to utilize some of these other players that are coming in. I'm happy to see Kellen Moore putting other guys back there to field punts. So maybe he is looking at it the same way I am and trying to utilize Rashid Shaheed more in that offensive capacity and not so much on special teams. So that's something else that I'm looking at. Those are the two things that I'm looking at so far. I'll get into more of what I'm looking at in 2025 as the show goes on. But right now, I think that's a good stopping point for us to acknowledge the chat here. Special shout out to Jerry. One Smoke, thank you for being here. Adrian, thank you for being here. Rose City, Finest. And thank y'all. I really do appreciate it. And everybody that's watching this right now live, I really do appreciate your time as well. But let's go ahead and get into it. Well, we'll start with Smoke said, let's go. Caught the show today. Yeah, you caught the show today. You caught the show, and I'm excited that you did. Appreciate it. Brian says, who that? Smoke says, happy belated birthday to Jerry. We strolled down to Finest. Finest says they need to limit Shaheed to just offensive snaps. Too much wear and tear on the young guy. I don't know if you put that before I started talking about Rashid Shaheed or after, but I'm glad to know that somebody else is speaking the same language as me. When you have a player as special as Rashid Shaheed is, you don't want to take away from the offense by putting him out there on special teams. And you know, man, special teams, guys flying down the field, 100 and some odd miles per hour, and it just takes like one hit and this guy's out. We know how much of a deep threat he is. We know what he means to this offense, and I'm pretty sure that Kellen Moore can cook something up that Rashid Shaheed can do and be a weapon on the offense. So I just hope that they may be looking at some other guys to return kicks and punts. Didn't Dante Pettis return kicks? Yep. And did a good job too. Like, he almost returned one for a touchdown. I want to say it was against the Falcons. He almost returned one for a touchdown. So you got something back there. And if you look at a player like Dante Pettis, that's probably where he's going to make this team. It's not last year when you had so many injuries and you're still around because, the depth chart just fell in your favor. But when you bring in all these different talented guys in, you falling further and further down the depth chart. So you got to, in the words of Jacob Fatu, you got to get in where you fit in. You got to get in where you fit in. So if special teams is where you fit in, then guess what? That's where you got to, what would they say, butter your bread? Your bread got to be buttered. Let's see. I don't know if the plan will work, but Kellen definitely has a plan. Yeah, don't know if the plan is going to work, but he has a plan. And I can appreciate that. We don't know if a plan is going to work until a plan is executed. Like, if it's executed, and we see it in full in its fullness in real time, then we'll know if it's a good idea or a bad idea. But I like the fact that he is doing things differently. There's nothing about Kellen Moore and what he has done this offseason mirrors the old Saints regime in any way, and I'm appreciative of that. I said it. I just want to see if this team could do something different. Can you do something different? Can you do that? If you can do something different than what we are accustomed to seeing, then I think that's a start. Saints fans just want to see something different. If they can see something different, then I think that he's already trending in the right direction. But all the things that he is doing, he is showing that, number one, he's a player's coach. And that comes from having experience as a player. You've been in the locker rooms where you understood the ups and the downs and the hardships and the grind and the verbiage and how guys respond to certain situations. And you're able to adjust on the fly based on the pulse of the locker room because you have experienced all different types of emotions being a football player and being a coach. So having your players have a team bonding exercise instead of grinding it out on the last day, showing appreciation, listening to the players, trying to understand what they want will go a long way. Now, there's levels to that. You don't want to just go out there and just allow everybody to do what they want to do. You want to do it within reason. If you can do it within reason, then, I think that everybody is going to fall in line. And when those hard times come, I think the team is going to rally behind you. What he's doing right now, to me, is building up a lot of equity for himself. TJ, who are your projected breakouts this year? I got AK, Alante, Penning, and Neal. That's a really good list, King Arthur. That's a really good list. My breakouts would have to be Chris Olave. Now, some people would say that he doesn't need to break out, but I beg to differ. I still feel that Chris Olave is not a true number one. And I am sitting here hoping that 2025 is the year he changes my mind I'm serious. I don't want to speak about Chris Olave in this manner. I don't. But I want him to change my mind. So I would say Chris Olave would be number one. Number two would be Kool-Aid McKinstry, because the Saints need him to perform at a high level. They need him to take that jump from year one to year two. He has got to be special. Looking at this secondary, looking at how these guys are structured, he needs to step out and be that star. So I would put him on that list. Number three would be Carl Granderson. I think that Carl Granderson losing weight, slimming down, getting back to around the size he was coming out of the University of Wyoming is going to help him. Him being able to stand up and move around a little bit more in the 3-4 is going to help him. And I feel this is the year where he can get double-digit sacks. So those are a few guys that I am counting on to make a jump, because if they do, then the Saints can be much better than any of us anticipate if you can get those young guys going. I don't care. I still think we need a Keenan Allen type to take pressure off our top twos. Yeah, Mad Drummer, you may be right. You may be right in regards to them needing a 6'4" wide receiver. But I will say this. Let's not just throw these other guys away, because it goes back to a few episodes in the past when I mentioned that we know that a lot of our gripes and our frustrations stem from Dennis Allen being a head coach. We felt the team wasn't responding to him. A lot of guys did not break out that shell, and I think it had a lot to do with the way the team was structured. That is why I'm asking everyone. I mean, you're well within your rights to do whatever you want to do, but I'm just asking everyone to reserve their judgment until all the facts come out. If some of the guys that you have been skeptical about come here looking the same way and nothing is different, and a different defense, and asking them to do something different than what they were doing last season, then I think that we all can concede that homie ain't ready for prime time. But I'm asking everybody to reserve their judgment. Like Bub means, we don't know how good this guy could be. With a better offense, better offensive-minded coach, who knows? He may not be that 1,000-yard receiver. You don't need Bub Means to be a 1,000-yard receiver. That would be nice, but if he can get you 30 to 35 receptions, 400 to 500 yards, and you still have Olave and Shaheed the majority of the season with no injuries, or maybe miss a game or two, then that's a good year for Bub Means. I think a lot of us, when we're talking about a 6'4", 6'5" guy, we're looking at him becoming Mike Evans or him being Michael Thomas. And the Saints don't need that. What they need is a big body guy that can move the chains, that can be a threat in the red zone. That is what they need. You got Olave and Shaheed to eat. But if Bub Means can give you 35 to 40 receptions, maybe 500 yards, that's a good season. And to me, that's a pretty good stat line for a guy like Bub Means. So we'll see. I don't want to punish or criticize these young players that we have seen kind of be wallowing around in the mud of mediocrity for the last couple of years. And we know that the Saints coaching staff have not done these guys any favors. I feel it's unfair. It's unfair for us to evaluate these guys knowing that the head coach was incompetent and the players, for the most part, didn't want to play for him. And this was like a year and a half. So Kellen Moore said that he's wiping the slate clean. Everybody basically starts off with a blank sheet of paper. That's the way I'm looking at it too. I want to see what some of these guys that we had question marks about are going to look like with Kellen Moore as their head coach and a new coaching staff. Juwan supposed to be the one to take pressure off our wide receivers. We need more production from the tight end room. One smoke, maybe you'll see that. If you look at Kellen Moore's track record, he utilizes the tight ends in his offense. Last year was Dallas Goedert. Then I can remember Dalton Schultz, Jake Ferguson, Gerald Everett out there in Los Angeles with the Chargers. He has always utilized tight ends in his offense. So I expect Juwan Johnson to play a big role. I want to see if Juwan Johnson can live up to those expectations. I was shocked when Juwan Johnson got re-signed by the New Orleans Saints. But there's always things going on behind the scenes as to why the Saints decide to do whatever they do. But Juwan Johnson definitely needs to step up. He definitely needs to start making plays. And, you know, being okay with winning 4 and 5 games, talking about having fun, I can't get down with that, man. Now, I can't have fun if I know that I'm not living up to my expectations. Like, I get what he's saying, and I'm pretty sure his thoughts and his views were to lift and build team morale or whatever. Like, things gonna get better, but there's nothing fun about that. And when he said that, it just kind of threw me back. You know, I have nothing against Juwan Johnson. I think that he's a talented guy. He's a funny guy. Great family man. Everybody kind of know his story about him and his wife. And, you know, now they have 2 kids. Congratulations to them. You know, but you got to be able to bring it. And you are a major part of the offense. So if you're not doing the things that you need to do, then I don't feel like the offense is going to be on the up and up. And maybe that the Saints are looking at Juwan Johnson as that 6'4", 6'5" receiver that everybody is asking about. Maybe that's the case, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm surprised Cam hasn't been used more in that half-back passing. He was a quarterback in high school. Yeah, we were talking about Cam Akers. Yeah, Cam Akers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they probably will. You know, I can see that happening. I don't think Kellen Moore, if a running back or, you know, any skilled player has the ability to throw the ball down the field, I think he'll utilize that. See, who that record says, where TJ at? Well, the real, if you're from that old New Orleans, you know where I'm at. Real talk, I'm just glad there is something new going on instead of hanging on the Sean Payton era when he's not even here anymore. Yeah, you got to be able to change with the times. If you can change with the times, you'll be okay. I think a lot of teams' issues is they want to do the same old song and dance, the same old status quo, and they expect for that to generate success. You know, people look at the Rooney family and they think that, okay, how many years they've had stability, not too many head coaches, you know, great defenses, et cetera, et cetera. So everybody kind of mirrors their organization after the Rooney family, right, with the Steelers. But everybody can't be the Steelers. There's a reason why they're looked at and revered the way that they are, is because everyone can't be like them, right? So you got to be able to find your own lane. And it was great. For 15, 16 years, the New Orleans Saints were the epitome of stability. Did they go to the Super Bowl every year? Absolutely not. But you knew you were going to win 9, 10, 11 games a season. But those days are long gone. So it's best for you to acknowledge that those days are long gone and try to do something about it. Make no mistake about it. The New Orleans Saints, the reason why they are in this situation, and I'm going to say this until I can't say it no more, I will say it from the mountaintops, I will say it from the valley low. The New Orleans Saints did not force this rebuild. It basically slapped them in the face. They had no choice but to embrace it because the fan base was tired and the fan base pretty much forced their hand. If it was up to Mickey Loomis, Dennis Allen will still be the head coach of this football team, and probably Derek Carr will still be the quarterback of this football team right now. But thanks to the Saints fans who are passionate, who understand that the product has been tainted, diluted, if you will, they said no mas, no more. And they did something about it, which caused Gail Benson and the Saints Trust to go over the head of Mickey Loomis. So anybody that feels like they don't have power, you do. You do, man. Strolling down. TJ, what do you think of our offensive identity will be? I think that the Saints' offensive identity will consist of running the football. You look at two young quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler started in 6 games. Cool. But he's still a young quarterback. And he's a young quarterback going into his second season, going into his second offensive style, right? This is a completely different playbook than what Clint Kubiak was cooking up for him last year. So you're basically a rookie again because you're learning a playbook again. Normally, if you have some stability within your organization, then your second season, you're actually building on the playbook from your first season. But now everybody is trying to get, acclimated to a brand new offense. So I always say, and there is an old saying that the best friend of a young quarterback is a good defense in a running game. So I expect for the Saints to run the football. I expect for them to set up the play action. I expect for plays in the middle of the field, more tight ends, routes and plays for the tight ends to make. I expect for whoever it is. It can be Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck. I don't expect for them to be throwing for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, at least not early in the season. I expect for them to be a complement to the running game. So it is, to me, the running game will be the calling card of the offense until these young guys figure it out. I'm not saying it's going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but I think the Saints offense is going to be featured by Alvin Kamara and the running game. That's what I feel. But I think the wide receiver is going to end up making plays as the weeks go by. Yeah, let's just see a year or more before we put him in convo with Sean. Well, I don't think anybody's like putting him. If you put him in a conversation with Sean Payton, then I would strongly suggest that you don't. I think when it comes down to it, Smoke, is this. When Kellen Moore first came to the Saints, people didn't know what to think of it because Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and we all know how the Cowboys operate. We know that the Cowboys have a judge, a jury, and an executioner, and all of them named just so happen to be Jerry Jones. Right? He calls the shots, right? And, you're coming from that type of organization where you have a lot of yes men around there or have a reputation of being yes men. So when he came to the New Orleans Saints, people are like, yeah, well, maybe this is the reason why Mickey Loomis hired him because he's not going to rattle any cages. He's used to that Jerry Jones type way where he's just going to do his job and not so much worry about what the general manager is doing. But we're slowly starting to see him put his fingerprint on everything. It starts with Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck was his hand-picked quarterback. That was the quarterback that he selected out of all the quarterbacks that we evaluated, looked at, and wanted. Tyler Shuck was his guy. Then, he gets his defensive coordinator in Brandon Staley, who was the head coach of the Chargers when Moore was the offensive coordinator, brought him in. He's bringing in, guys who he has climbed the coaching ranks with, all the while have been mentors to him. Scott Linehan up in that thing, Doug Nussmeier, guys that he trusts. So he's putting his fingerprint on everything. The team drills, all of these things matter. So I just think that the things that he's doing are getting Saints fans on board with him versus like them sitting back and just, like, oh man, all is doomed. Like you have some Saints fans that still feel that way because they don't trust this football team because it consists of a lot of young, inexperienced guys combined with a bunch of old guys that are in the twilight of their career. But if you were skeptical about if Kellen Moore could have a vision or get guys to buy into what he's doing, you're getting your answer in real time, and it's comforting, if that makes sense. Like, nobody wants to go into a situation feeling like all hope is lost. You try to find glimmers of hope in every little thing when things seem to be hopeless. And what Kellen Moore is doing is providing hope to those that may not have had it. I'm not saying that he completely changed the minds. Maybe he changed a lot of people's mind. Maybe somebody right now is thinking completely differently than they did in February when the Saints, were nowhere near the playoffs and only had 5 wins ending the season. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, he hasn't coached the game as the Saints head coach, so it would be blasphemous at this point to compare him to Sean Payton. Sean Payton is the greatest head coach in New Orleans Saints history. Now, I know that's not saying much, but he is. And if Kellen Moore can get the Saints on track, win some football games, playoff appearances, win a couple divisions, maybe flirt with a Super Bowl, then we can have that conversation. It's not hard for him to be the second greatest head coach of all time. No disrespect to Jim Mora, but it's not that hard. It's just not. You go to the playoffs 4, 5, times, maybe be a head coach for the team 8, 9 years. You're already the second greatest coach of all time. Win a Super Bowl, then you in a conversation. He's not a yards after the catch guy. Catch and get down, a.k.a. Marvin Harrison Sr. But not on his level. He good, though. If we talking about Chris Olave, yeah, that's a good comparison. I like the comparison of Marvin Harrison. Yeah, Marvin Harrison was a smart football player, disciplined route runner. I can see a lot of his traits, in Chris Olave, if that's what we're talking about. So, TJ, are you saying Chris is like Anthony Davis, number 1 talent, but a number 2 mentality? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say, well, yeah, I would say that. I would say that. I would say that he's a number 1 according to the depth chart, but yeah, his personality resembles that of, a number 2 receiver. And the reason I'm saying this is, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with this, but I don't feel like it matters that much if Chris Olave doesn't get the ball. Like, I don't think that it matters. Now, let me elaborate on that. I'm not saying you got to be T.O., right? Give me the ball, but I don't think he politicking for the ball. Like, if the ball ain't coming his way like that, I don't think it really means that much to him. And also, I could be wrong about this, but if somebody was to come to the team, like let's just say Jeremiah Smith ends up getting drafted by the Saints. Jeremiah Smith comes to the Saints and becomes that number 1 guy. I don't think Chris Olave would care that much. As a matter of fact, I've watched a lot of Chris Olave press conferences. This last press conference, like, go back and watch it. This was the last press conference that I seen was the most passionate I think I ever seen Chris Olave. The question was asked about him, being traded. And, I think don't know who it was, but a reporter was like, maybe you should have took it as a compliment. He said, I didn't take it that way. That was like the first time like I ever seen him kind of stand on business or really show like that dog inside of him. Like, man, that ain't cool. But because it just seemed like he just has this passive behavior. And, he's the number one, in my opinion, based on the depth chart. Can he make plays? Yes. But I can argue and say that Rashid Shaheed made more plays than he has in a Saints uniform. And Rashid Shaheed is an undrafted rookie free agent. And Chris Olave is a first-round pick. Something is wrong with that. I'm just saying. I mean, it's a testament to show you how much of the draft process is a joke that somebody as talented as Rashid Shaheed would go undrafted. But once again, if you're looking at Rashid Shaheed, you're looking at Chris Olave, you can't really tell a difference between the two sometimes. And in some cases, you feel like Shaheed is better. But I digress. Strolling down. TJ, if Moore takes us to the NFC Championship his first year, how you feel about that? If he takes the New Orleans Saints to the NFC Championship his first year, then he automatically becomes the third best head coach in New Orleans Saints history. Yes, I just said that. Because Jim Haslett brought the Saints to the wild card game. They won their first playoff game. They lost in the divisional round. Sean Payton took the Saints to the NFC Championship game in his first year. So if Kellen Moore takes the New Orleans Saints to the NFC Championship game, he automatically becomes the number 3 greatest coach in New Orleans Saints history. I still feel, playoffs or not, that Jim Moore is the second greatest coach in New Orleans Saints history. Like, he had all those great defenses. The offense just stunk. Well, stunk. Excuse me. They stunk. Offense stinks. I could smell it all the way every time I was watching the game. Like, I could smell it all the way from Montague Street to Poydras Street. It stunk. It stunk, folks. And but that defense was always on point, which was his calling card. So he not only does he have to go to the NFC Championship game, he got to have a few more winning seasons before I feel he would surpass the legendary Jim Moore. Alfred, thank you very much for the $4.99. Says, why all the podcasters on New Orleans of football already saying it's a full-blown conclusion, we're going to be bad. It's like we're putting Kellen in a box. Well, I think they just, saying what a lot of Saints fans feel. And look, I want people to understand this. Alfred, thank you again for the $4.99. And I'm not trying to be facetious when I say this. It's not a podcaster's job to talk you off the ledge. I can give my opinion and my thoughts and my views. There are episodes where I say, maybe, you want to reserve your judgment till all the facts come out, but it's up to you to, listen and, heed my advice. That's not their job. Their job is not to tell you, oh, the Saints are going to be great. And look, when somebody blowing smoke up your behind. I don't have to tell you, you already know. So they shouldn't have to do that. Like, I know that this whole podcasting game, I hear it all the time. I don't want to get on my soapbox. But people are like, oh, man, you just super negative. You so negative about the team. It's not the fact that I'm being negative. I'm forming my opinion based on what I saw. If you notice, since the beginning of the season, I ain't just been sitting up here just ishing all on the team because I understand that the league changes from year to year. But at the same time, some people only go by what they actually saw last. If the Saints only won 5 games last season, how can somebody say they're a Super Bowl contender? How can somebody just tell you that, oh, man, they got a new coach now, so all their problems are going to go away? No, we know that more than likely it's going to take more than just a different voice at head coach to fix the issues that have been plaguing this team. It's a mind frame. It's a culture change that needs to take place on airline. You know it, and I know it. The way that they approach the draft, the way that they look at certain players, the way that they deal with the salary cap. All of these things have got to be addressed before we can really start talking about the Saints being a contender. Now, Kellen Moore can change this completely. We've seen this before. We've seen it happen with so many different teams. Get a head coach that knows what they're doing, that's fundamentally sound, offensively, defensively, well organized, and the next thing you know, you see a team that has been in poverty for I don't know how long, they end up turning the corner. We see it all the time. But until then, I can understand why some people are like, I don't know about this team. I don't know about them. I can understand that. Excuse me. I can understand that. I get it. I get why somebody will feel that way. So I just think sometimes, man, when it comes to the podcasting game, people, want podcasts sometime. And I'm like I said, I'm not saying you're doing this, Alfred, but I think that they feel like it's a responsibility for the podcaster to make them feel comfortable about a situation they don't feel comfortable about. But if there is a reason, if I feel like there's a reason why you should feel comfortable, then I'll tell you, and I have. That's why I haven't been talking about certain players, because I want to see what they look like in his new scheme. But it's well within their rights, man. If you see a team win 5 games, you have a quarterback who is competing, who played in 6 games, then win one, regardless of how you want to evaluate it. And you also have a second round quarterback, who has a good arm, but you still have to show that he can play in the National Football League. I can understand the skepticism. I can. How you feel Tyler Shough will turn out? I think, based on what I see, I think he can be a solid quarterback. I need to see next level. I don't know if he's next level. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you can be a stable quarterback, and stable quarterbacks can get paid 6, 7, 8 years, be a franchise guy, put up some numbers, break statistical records, but just don't win nothing. Might go to the playoffs, might get you the divisional round, get bounced out, bang it back to the wild card, get you excited, might get bounced out, win about 10, 11 games for you, but don't win like the ultimate thing. I mean, there are guys like that. I see solid starter in Tyler Shough. I see a guy that can win you some football games, but do I look at him like, oh man, this the franchise quarterback, future guy? Like, he might be, but only time will tell. He resting right now. Let's see. I got a feeling our offensive line going to hold it down. Well, they should. It's been a while since we've seen some dominant offensive line play from the Saints. The consistency at the offensive line right now in minicamp, OTAs, just tells us that's going to be the rotation. And credit to Kellen Moore, not trying to change things around, not trying to, okay, let me see what you're doing at right tackle. Well, let me see what you're doing at left tackle. Calvin Banks came in. He was, to me, no disrespect to Will Campbell, but to me, he was the top offensive lineman in the draft. Like, if somebody said, okay, Will Campbell is the number 1 guy, yeah, okay, I can get down with that. But we're talking about athleticism, ability, check all the boxes. We ain't talking about no arm reach and all that kind of stuff. Calvin Banks is your guy. The Saints got a special offensive lineman in Calvin Banks. Calvin Banks, like, as long as he stays healthy, we're going to look at Calvin Banks how we look at Teron Armstead, Ryan Ramczyk, Jahmai Bushride, Jonathan Goodwin. Jari Evans. That's how we're going to look at this kid. He is a special talent. And to move him from left tackle to right tackle, I feel like that would have been an injustice. You did the right thing by putting Tally on the right side because that's where he thrived. That's where most of the tape that you watched, that's when he was dominating. And I think you're going to see how dominant he is because he was pretty solid at left tackle, a position that he's not accustomed to playing. And then maybe you can do something with Trevor Penning. I don't know if Trevor Penning going to get paid, folks. I don't know. You don't know. But if you can salvage this man's career, I'm pretty sure he would be appreciative of it. And the organization would be appreciative of Kellen Moore for finding something. We seen it with Mekhi Becton, move from tackle to guard. And now, like, Mekhi Becton was just basically floating from the Jets, all these other teams that, he played for the Jets, hurt, coming back, struggles, goes to Philly. They find a place for him. And then when the season was over, we won a Super Bowl, he becomes a free agent. It wasn't a day that went by, people was talking about, man, what about Mekhi Becton? What you think about Mekhi Becton? They need to sign Mekhi Becton. That was a statement that a lot of us probably never thought that we would say, based on how Mekhi Becton's career started, from the injuries to the inconsistent play. So all I'm saying is this could be a success story for Trevor Penning. And then, of course, you got Cesar Ruiz and Eric McCoy, guys who have been here for a while. As long as Eric McCoy stay healthy, he top 2 at his position in the entire NFL. Cesar Ruiz, salvageable. Do I feel like you can do better than Cesar Ruiz? Yes, you can. But solid, all right? He'll get the job done, right? It's almost like, I don't know, great value peanut butter. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't get Jif, but you got great value. Still get the job done. It's still peanut butter, and it still tastes good. All right? You still can get it done. Probably don't taste like Jif, but, still give you that feeling. But they already praising AG and Ben Johnson, saying they say going to do a quick turnaround. It's like Kellen not getting the same love. Look, they're getting the praise because, number one, Ben Johnson justifiably deserves the praise. The guy is one of the best offensive minds in football. A lot of prognosticators, onlookers feel like the Chicago Bears are trending in the right direction. Why? Because they have Caleb Williams as their quarterback. To me, I don't feel like the Bears are going to go anywhere. I don't. And this isn't hyperbole. I just don't. Like, Caleb Williams, to me, is one of those guys who, he'll fold like a cheap 10. Seriously. Like, he's one of those guys that teammates will grow sour on really, really quick. And that's not a good thing. So unless he's going to change the way that he approaches the game, I don't see them winning anything. I don't see them winning anything of any significance. They might win, like they might look good offensively, but I don't see them like reaching that ultimate goal. I think they're going to be better. Dennis Allen going to have that defense looking like something. Ben Johnson going to have that offense looking like something in Chicago. But I just don't trust Caleb Williams because I feel like he's a thin-skinned quarterback. Thin-skinned, just blame others, never really kind of look at himself, and just think that he's much better than what he actually is. Like, sometimes those guys be reading their press clippings. He's one of those. Nobody cares what you did. You can come to the NFL with so much fanfare and everybody know you and everybody saying, oh, how great you're going to be. But you got to play the game. Got to play the game, man. And and as far as Aaron Glenn, Aaron Glenn, they're saying that because Aaron Glenn's personality, and right now, if you look at some of his press conferences, he's able to go toe-to-toe with the New York media. A lot of reporters, they will give you the benefit of the doubt if you don't allow the New York media just to chew you up and spit you out. He understands the New York media because he played the majority of his career with New York. And, he was, part of a really good Detroit Lions team. He coached the defense. And Ben Johnson coached that offense. And they're looking at this also because they were a part of the Detroit Lions renaissance. Like, you got to give them credit for that. Like, they may not have coached a game as a head coach, but they turned that organization around. We're talking about the Lions being Super Bowl contenders because of those two individuals. So I can understand why. And then you look at the New Orleans Saints, who during a head coaching search seemed like nobody wanted to come to the team. I mean, you got to take a look at that, man. Like Kellen Moore wasn't the Saints' first choice now. We know it was like, like Forrest Gump getting on that school bus. This seat's taken. This seat's taken. Then you hear that little quiet little girl voice in the background. You can sit here if you want. Right? That was Kellen Moore. You can sit here if you want. And let's talk on our way to school and maybe, find out I like you or whatever. Like that's just what it was. Like this was not an appealing situation. We can't forget the entire story just because the book is over. Like we know how the Saints got to this point. There are no primetime games for the New Orleans Saints. Like the NFL didn't hold back how they felt about the Saints. They feel like the Saints are going to be the worst team in football. You won 5 games. You have a rookie quarterback coming in the second round. You got another quarterback in his second year has not won a game. You got another quarterback going into his third season who was so bad they benched him in the first half. And you got another guy on the team who is an undrafted guy who has talent, but once again, hasn't played in the National Football League. Like these are real, legitimate, like reasons to not want to support or get behind a team. If you were not a New Orleans Saints fan and emotionally invested in his football team, would you be saying the same thing? Would you be saying, "Oh, they're not giving the New Orleans Saints a chance"? No, you will probably be a part of the group that's adding fuel to the fire and making Saints fans feel miserable about their circumstance. No, it's reality, folks. We don't want to acknowledge our shortcomings. People don't want to acknowledge their shortcomings. People don't want to acknowledge the things that they lack. But sometimes you got to embrace those things in order to create change, and also have a realization about where you are and who you are. I don't think it's personal. And if you take it personal, then do something about it. Win some football games. Show the NFL that it was a mistake that they put you in the noonday slot for the majority of the season. Show them. TJ, you think the Lions take a step back? That's a good question. And that's something that I have really thought about, especially getting ready for the state of the NFL. I think they do. I think that they take a step back. Losing Ben Johnson is huge. Losing Aaron Glenn is huge. And, that's what happens when you have success. Teams start to try to pull away the elements of your team that are, or what they feel is responsible for your success. So I expect for them to take a step back, because if they don't, then I'm wondering to myself, how good was Ben Johnson really? So I think he's going to be greatly missed. Now, no disrespect to Aaron Glenn, but they have defensive coordinators that can coach defense better than he can. He's a solid defensive coach. Don't get me wrong. He deserves to be a head coach. But, I mean, I seen some I seen some 2016, 2017 type New Orleans Saints defensive football with the Detroit Lions in their secondary. And y'all know what I'm talking about. Guys don't have their head turned around, out of position, giving up big chunk plays, you know? TJ, do you think Quincy Riley can become a better corner than Paulson Adebo? Do I think so? I mean, I think he can. They have similarities when it comes to they skill set. You know, Quincy Riley is a ball hawking corner. Paulson Adebo was a ball hawking corner. I just feel like, you know, I mean, he's a physical cornerback. I'm talking Riley. You know, Paulson was a little bit too physical. So, yeah, I think when the New Orleans Saints were drafting Quincy Riley, Paulson Adebo was on their mind. And they knew more than likely they were going to lose Paulson to free agency. And, you know, they tried to find someone that's just, you know, close to his skill set, his ability. To me, I do feel like Quincy Riley is a little bit more of a dog than Paulson Adebo is. I feel like Paulson Adebo has better ball skills, than Quincy Riley. Will he really have the defense looking better? He still can't stop a mobile quarterback. Well, I think so. I think he will. Man, I'm not going to kick the man on the behind on his way out and not, you know, just reflect and know that this, like, he's talented. Some coaches are just not good head coaches. Steve Spagnuolo. Look at Steve Spagnuolo. Look at Steve. Steve is out there thriving as the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. Every single year, the Kansas City Chiefs have a formidable championship defense, and it's because of Steve Spagnuolo. But if you ask Steve Spagnuolo, the head coach of your football team, I'm just wondering, where is the pink stuff that you hiding in your desk? Because this guy has no reason being a head coach. And that's the same way I feel about Dennis Allen. But as a defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen can coach my defense. The Chicago Bears will have a top 5 defense. You can book it. You can book it. I don't care about him not being able to stop a mobile quarterback. I don't care about that. I guarantee you they're going to have a top 5 defense because Dennis Allen is their defensive coordinator. If Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator only for the New Orleans Saints would not have looked as trash as they have over the last 3 to 4 years. If the Saints would have hired, for example, Kevin O'Connell and had Dennis Allen as the defensive coordinator, then we can talk about probably the Saints picking up where Sean Payton and Drew Brees left off. We've seen Kevin O'Connell. We've seen Kevin O'Connell take the most mediocre quarterbacks you have ever seen and had them boys looking like something. Man got Sam Darnold paid in Seattle. Josh Dobbs was out there balling in Minnesota. I know you Saints fans remember, because every time Josh Dobbs plays the Saints, he turns into Lamar Vick. And for those that don't know, that's a combination between Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick. So he would have brought something here that was stable. And you had Dennis Allen, whose only job is to make sure his defense is on point. Guarantee you the Saints would have won at least 1 or 2 division titles over the last 4 years. I guarantee you it wouldn't have been Tampa. I guarantee you. Look, Dennis Allen was a horrible head coach. I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know. But as a defensive coordinator, one of the best. One of the best. One thing we know of you started winning, they will make a primetime game for you. Yep. You got to make people believe. You got to make people believe. Yeah, like you hear about all these success stories. Hip-hop artists, Man, how you started out, man? Shoot, I was just at a talent show. I just started spitting, and they had a manager and a crowd. You got to give people something to believe in. Hear people all the time talking about sponsorships, talking about how they want to, do a podcast. What's the first thing you do? How you get started? You believe. You believe. You give them something to believe in. That is how you do it. Nobody is going to invest in nothing that they don't believe in. I don't care if it's your close family member. Nobody wants to put their name attached to something that they don't believe in. So it goes back to Saints football. Goes back to the Saints. If you feel like it's an injustice that the New Orleans Saints have no primetime games, then guess what? Take them to NFL court, plead your case every single Sunday by winning football games, and then your closing argument will be a division title where you become undeniable. Plain and simple. I mean, it's not plain and simple, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you have to look differently. You have to exceed people's expectations. You have to make the skeptics a believer. It's not very easy, is it? It's not very easy making skeptics believers. But guess what? If you believe in yourself and you stand on business, then guess what? You will be able to get the results that you seek. What's up, TJ? I hope all is well with you and yours. Yeah, everything's good. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it, man. Shouts out to Twitch, man. I think you probably the first person I seen make a comment on Twitch. So thank you. Appreciate that. We've only been using Twitch for, let me see, maybe 3 weeks now. So shouts out to all of the individuals watching this live stream on Twitch. One thing about Dennis, can coach a defense. He probably the best defensive coordinator we ever had. He definitely, I mean, you could talk about Don Capers with the Dome Patrol, but yeah, I think consistently great. Yeah, Don Capers and Dennis Allen. I mean, you got to give Dennis, you have to give Dennis Allen credit for turning around his defense. When Rob Ryan was the defensive coordinator, my goodness, them boys couldn't stop traffic with a stop sign. Smoked like brisket, burnt like a biscuit. Y'all know. But he came in. I'm talking Dennis Allen. Changed the defense. Made it better. If Dennis Allen did not sign his name on a dotted line to be the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, he would have went down in history as one of the greatest coaches in New Orleans Saints history. He still, like, some time gotta be removed. But he deserves for his name to be in the Saints Ring of Honor as a defensive coordinator. He belongs in the Saints Hall of Fame. You may not like him as because of what he did as a head coach, but as a defensive coordinator, he belongs there. He belongs in the Saints, at least the Saints Hall of Fame for his defensive coach. And this sounds crazy, I don't know what, but if Dennis Allen, if the Saints like, Dennis, we want you to be a coach. Well, I like being a coordinator. I'd rather just go stay as a coordinator and see where this goes. Or if Mickey didn't even give him the opportunity, he just went out here and hired somebody else, then Dennis Allen would have been looked at as one of the greatest coaches in New Orleans Saints history for the way that he coached the defense. Every bad feeling, emotion that you have about Dennis Allen involve him being a head coach. And maybe a couple games against Jalen Hurts. But for the most part, he had the defense looking like something. So, yes, I think he deserves to be in the Saints Hall of Fame as a defensive coordinator. Yes, I do. I just said that. TJ, which team do you think is a sleeper team to go to the Super Bowl? I don't think they're asleep, but it's the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, I'm not saying the Cincinnati Bengals until they fix that defense. They looking very 2010, 2008 New Orleans Saints-ish to me. Joe Burrow going out there throwing for a whole bunch of yards, 4 touchdowns. Defense can't stop nobody. Might get a turnover in a game and you win. Like, until they fix that defense, they ain't winning jack. If they come out there with a better defense, maybe, figure out what they're going to do with Shamar Stewart, give this man what he needs in order for him to get on the field, I would say the Bengals. But the Bengals not winning jack until they fix that defense. The Ravens, I wouldn't call them a sleeper team. Yeah, I would say the Ravens. It's time for the Ravens to get over that hump. I think the Bills are going to be right there. I think Kansas City going to be right there. And be on the lookout for, dare I say, the Denver Broncos. I think the Denver Broncos are going to be there. This may sound like a shock to a lot of people. Don't be surprised if Denver win the AFC West. Do not be surprised if the Denver Broncos win the AFC West. Don't be surprised. Do not be surprised if the Denver Broncos win the AFC West. Studsman is going to be a starter on the linebacker side. Well, everything I heard saying that Danny Studsman is a dog, so I hope he does. Steve Spagnuolo was horrible DC with the Saints. He was horrible. Yes, he was. He was horrible. But the majority of his defensive coordinating life, he has found success with the Giants. He's found success. Look, in 2007, when the New York Football Giants knocked off the undefeated New England Patriots, and the man, go back and watch that game. I know there's a sequence of events that we're all going to remember. The David Tyree helmet catch, the extended amount of time the referees took. They didn't blow the play dead with Eli Manning when he chunked the ball down the field. The touchdown to the left, the left sideline of the end zone to Plaxico Burress. Like all these different plays. But people don't remember the masterclass that Steve Spagnuolo's defense put out there. Like, the New England Patriots in 2007 looked virtually unstoppable. Like, they would just blow teams out the water. Randy Moss had 23 receiving touchdowns. Tom Brady had 50 touchdowns. I mean, the defense them boys had some dogs. Legends out there, Junior Seau and Rodney Harrison and Richard C. All these different cats out there, man. And that man put on a masterclass in that Super Bowl. To me, that solidified him to be a coordinator that will have a job for life. And that is what he had. The Saints you can argue the Saints was his worst coordinating job. I mean, when he was the head coach of the Rams, like they were trash, but their defense was looking like something. And now we look at with the Kansas City Chiefs, like he turned that thing around. So, yeah, the Saints was his worst stop, if you ask me. Now, I agree with that Broncos take, TJ. Them boys looking nice. Good football team. If Bo Nix, and it looks like they got their quarterback, man. Look like Sean Payton got his quarterback. I hope the Broncos don't win AFC West, because if they do, people won't let me hear the end of it. Don't be surprised, Dalton. We are going to have a chance to do what the Commanders did last season, punch the league in the mouth. Yeah, if you approach the season like that, then guess what? All of the disrespect, as Saints fans like to call it, will have to go out the window, because you will have to give respect to the Saints if they exceed expectations. So win football games, you change the narrative, and you generate success by going out there, beating teams you have no business beating, and finding yourself possibly winning the South when it's all said and done. But I want to say thank you all for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Really do appreciate it. Much love to each and every one of you. Hope you enjoyed the show. We got up to 215 people live watching this right now, and I appreciate all 215 and so many others that are going to be watching this show, even as we end this stream. I really do appreciate it. I mean it. To everybody that has ever checked out 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 2 minutes of the State of the Saints podcast, I really do appreciate it. For those that just tuned in, not too sure about the show when you first started, hopefully we won you over. You can hit that subscribe button. Also, hit that bell for notifications. I noticed that a lot of people have said that they haven't, been getting notifications. Make sure you hit that bell. The bell will tell you when I'm going live, will tell you when I'm posting videos. So be on the lookout for that by hitting that bell for notifications. Also, the State of the NFL will be coming in a couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about the entire NFL. We're going to be talking about different teams, different divisions, storylines, etc. We're going to be doing that on the State of the NFL, so be on the lookout for that. Saints Talk with Timothy J. Jones every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bleacher Report app. All right, go to Bleacher Report app, select New Orleans Saints. You will be able to check out the live stream every single Wednesday. I need you all support so we can grow that as much as we have grown this channel. So, and you can follow me on X at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
All I got to say is, who dat?